faster, like in 10 days rather than, rather than 6 months that it might take with an insurance carrier. We're not having to pay network access fees. This, I would say, is something that's, I think, gaining a lot of traction. It is a little controversial because there is a situation where an employee could receive a balance bill. The hospital says, you guys didn't pay me enough. And then we get into there's protections for employees, but it's something that I think is gaining in popularity because it's actually a super effective way to control costs. Another thing that clients are doing is medical bill review. So insurance carriers traditionally have agreements where they auto-adjudicate claims, which means when they get a bill, they will see that bill from the hospital and they just process it and say, okay, auto-adjudicated, we, approved in 3 days. They actually have in their contract with the hospitals that they are not allowed to scrub that bill in very much detail and say, was this appropriate or not? So companies are bringing in medical bill review teams that would actually look at those bills and say, you know what, you just charged me, you billed $80,000 for this, you charged me $1,000 for 5 toothbrushes, that's inappropriate, and would scrub that bill in more detail. And I mean, we're seeing examples of them shaving, 50% of the cost off of a bill just in finding errors, because it is estimated that 90% of hospital bills contain errors, whether through a typo, a misbill, a bundling error, something inappropriate. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily fraud, but certainly lots of different ways for there to be errors. Another really big one is carving out pharmacy to transparent pharmacies that would pay rebates directly to the employer rather than keeping them. And is this something you're familiar with, or would it help me to go into a little bit more detail of how this works?
Yeah, you might want to explain that. I'm not sure we've heard that from or read about that.
Okay. Yeah. So traditionally, let's say I am with Aetna, and we're using, I believe they use CVS Caremark as their pharmacy benefit manager. And CVS has these agreements with pharmaceutical manufacturers and say, if we have employees who buy, or members who buy Harvoni, which the manufacturer will give a rebate of thousands of dollars back to the insurance company or to the pharmacy benefit manager and say, thank you for buying our expensive brand drug. In most cases, the pharmacy benefit manager keeps that rebate. There's situations where you can carve out to a more transparent pharmacy that they just say, you know what, we're going to charge a per employee per month fee. And as a result of that, we're not keeping any of these rebates. If there's any rebates that are given, we are going to give those rebates back to you as the employer, so you get that money back. They're also negotiating tougher contracts by joining in pharmacy purchasing coalitions. So maybe a middle market company might suddenly have the purchasing power of a Fortune 500, and so they can get better contractual terms for their pharmacy. So there's a lot of pharmacy coalitions out there. Other things, I think employers are still doing wellness programs. I don't think that they are necessarily moving the needle, but I think employers are hopeful they will. Whether they're working or not, to be determined. I think it's very dependent upon what the wellness program is and how out of the box cookie cutter it is, how much we're trying to get everyone to run 10 miles versus really focusing on our high cost claimants. So others are putting in place very robust disease management, let's say, programs that really focus on employees that have chronic conditions and are realizing that, it's the 80-20 rule. It's 20% of